And welcome back to my Zelda 2 Let's Play. So, in this part, we are now at the 4th palace. And just to give a bit of a heads up, this palace is the first one I consider as the proper Zelda 2 challenge. Up to this point, stuff's been hard, but they've mostly been pretty short and fair dungeons. This dungeon goes on quite long and has quite a few annoying enemies. It's not bad, and I mean, I keep praising the difficulty of this game because I think as long as you're careful, the difficulty is usually okay. It's just sort of adapting to some of the challenges thrown in front of you. But yeah, this one can be a bit of an annoying dungeon if you're not proficient in using the jump spell, sometimes using fairy to skip out on some keyholes, and using that shield spell to keep you alive. But yeah. Now, this enemy here is the Parutamu, which stay in the pits, and you have to bait them out by moving really close to them. So it's a bit of a cheap shot because you do have to deal with possibly taking a hit because of the way they're designed to only come out the pits when you get close to them. So just keep an eye on that. But we've seen these enemies a few times before. They're not too tough to deal with. Now this room here, this pit is next to impossible to jump over without the jump spell. But as you can see, it's not a regular pit, as this actually leads to where the item of the dungeon is, which is good because we want to get the item as soon as possible. As you can see, I'm on quite bad health and magic for this dungeon, so I'll either die or I'll get myself restocked on my next life and make the most of that, but we'll have to see what happens. So yeah, gonna try on my next life. Well, that's fine, we've got 2 lives left, not a big deal, right? So I'm going to cast shield, make sure that I'm nice protected, and I get my fairy spell prepared here because this room has my favourite enemy, the blue iron knuckle, at the end. So I say, screw that iron knuckle, I'm going to just use fairy, squeeze through the keyhole, and we grab a boot. Now you need this boot to get to the 5th palace, and it basically lets you walk on water. There's only one secret, as far as I know, that you can get by walking on water, so it's another kind of situation like the raft where you need it more for plot progression rather than actually being a useful tool. Now I love this game, but I will say, the tools are really not useful. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that you had to get them, most of them would be so forgettable. Like, the hammer's the only one that really sticks in my mind as useful throughout. And to an extent the power glove, since late game you can find things in some of the brick walls sometimes. So here I'm using the fairy spell when we come back to this door when I have enough magic, because you want to make sure that you don't waste your keys. So actually dying here was a blessing in disguise for me, because this door could be completely ignored since there's nothing that special at the other side besides a key, which you don't have to grab for this dungeon. And the reason why I say use fairy here is because it just saves so much time in this dungeon by ignoring that pathway. You do want to stay on the bottom floor though, as there is a key that we will need, and unfortunately it's in another one of those cat head rooms, so we have to deal with that. Now the good thing is, with the upstab, we have more ways of attacking these enemies. They can still be really annoying, and they still have the same problems as before, but the upstab gives us one more offensive option against them. I've not tried using fire, so I don't know how useful it is to use fire, but that could possibly be a use of it here, if you wanted some range attacks, but I don't know myself if they work, so if any Zelda 2 professionals out there know, I'd be happy to learn. But yeah, the good thing about having the upstab as well is we can break the blocks above us, which can get us out of these areas a bit easier. especially if we have jump as well. But yeah, I just decided to say screw it, these guys giving me a lot of trouble, I've not got many lives left and I want to get through this dungeon as fast as possible, so I just cast Fairy and get myself out of that room as fast as I can. So yeah, now this is the thing with this game. You can see I'm constantly going through my menu, checking what spells I can use, what spells I can't use, and this is why I say the combat in this game is so exciting for me. I like this combat more than some of the more recent Zeldas, as I find constantly thinking about what spells I want to use is exciting. Like here, I decided, alright, rather than using Life, I'm going to use Reflect to try and kill these wizard enemies, who can only be killed by the Reflect spell, by the way, and get myself the XP, rather than focusing on my life. Now, in hindsight, I probably should have used Life there, but it was sort of a moment-by-moment case, and it could have been worth it if I had just got 200 more experience here. I would have got a level up, and that would have been really good for me. But, as we're going to see in a moment, I don't have enough magic for a jump. I couldn't make it across the pit. So, I have to drop down and go around. And it's not good news for me, because I don't want to waste that key. So with that, I slip into the enemy, I die, and I have to go all the way back. And we're back at the 4th palace again. Now, as you can see, my magic's high enough that I can use the jump spell. However, because I wanted to quickly get back to this area, I didn't really get as much experience as last time, so sadly I'm not close to a level up like I was before. Which is a real shame, because that extra level up would have really helped for the next palace. But yeah, with the jump spell in mind, the reason why we want to go this way is a key. And I cannot tell you why I just slipped off there, because even myself, I have no clue what happened. I guess I just didn't press the jump button in time. Now you can see me having the cursor over the fairy spell, and that's because sometimes in these sort of rooms, I like to use fairy once I grab the item. And I think the slowdown may have been what caused that instant earlier. As you can see, it's sort of chugging at points. But yeah, but since I got a magic top up, I decided, rather than use fairy, I'm going to just make my way across normally to try and save my magic for later. And one trick I like to use sometimes is with the doom knockers in these areas, is just let them jump in the pits. Like, if you can jump the hammer, just be careful with it, or even use reflect if you want to use some magic. And that definitely helps. But the reason I want to save magic is so I can use fairy in this pit room, so that I can ignore the key hole on the other floor, keep my 2 keys, and get a move on with this palace, because it's been causing a lot of trouble. I'd argue this palace, in regards to the game overs, gave me more trouble than the 2nd palace and the 3rd palace. However, gameplay wise, I think a lot of it was just sort of small little moments, not necessarily big mistakes like the 2nd palace had. And I can't really blame the difficulty either, it was just genuinely me not being that well good in the end. I think some of it might have been down to fatigue, as I was playing this game quite late at night, just to get the footage done. So I think by that point I was kind of tired out. And you can see at points I was kind of just stopping. I think I was thinking that there was a wizard there, but it might have also just been that I was quite tired and wanted to just take a drink break or something while I was playing. But yeah, by drink of course I mean a squash or a fizzy drink. So we've got this key up here with a goofy bubble, and unfortunately this takes me a moment to realise that it's drained all my magic by constantly hitting me. What I should have really done is try to kill it with just up stabs, as up stabs are a lot more accurate than the down stabs are now against these guys. But instead I just played it the long way and lost all my magic as a result, which will really hurt me later on, which you will see. But I get it trapped at the right point, so I can attack it until this stupid iron knuckle comes over and decides, oh no, I want to do that action, come here! Yeah, it's not going very well for me, this palace, but honestly, it doesn't feel like it's too cheap. It doesn't feel like... I mean, I was frustrated in the sense of I was tired and I was wanting to just get really smooth game footage through a part without having to do a lot of edits, but it's just sort of the way it happened. Like, it was late at night and I just kept making a few dumb mistakes. But at the end of the day, I got through it all in the end. I could have just been a bit more fluent with it all. But obviously it's different when you're recording yourself to when you're just playing it by yourself, as I found out when I was playing the game by myself, and I actually managed to beat the game on my separate save file in just a couple of hours, which shows how dedicated I was to it. But yeah, it also just shows that as difficult as this game gets, I didn't really want to quit. I didn't really want to, like, stop with everything. And you can see here I'm kind of debating on my magic, and that's because I just didn't realise for some reason that I'd run out of magic, because it was too late. Again, late at night. But yeah. So we've got another one of them cat rooms, which is annoying. But yeah. But as I was saying, I don't know, this game just, it can wind you up, and it can get annoying when you've made so much progress only to have to go all the way back through the palace again. But I don't really care. Like, the travel back lets me get experience, it lets me consider what went wrong, think about on the way back how to improve, think of different strategies, and because you keep all your keys and all of the items that you get through a dungeon, sometimes it can skip a door or two that you don't then have to go through, like what happened with my last death on the first bit of this video, before I cut. Now here I'm showing off that Reflect can also block strong attacks like the Doom Knockers. Personally, I think the Reflect spell is a bit underutilised. I like this feature, that it can block strong attacks, and I only recently found that out, but I wish it would reflect them as well, you know, like the name says. Like, it reflects the magic beams, but it doesn't reflect, say, oh, I don't know, the blue iron knuckles. And I understand that might make them a bit easy, but no, I think it'd be balanced by your magic and ensure that you're being resourceful and really considering everything you've got. But since it doesn't, I don't really use the Reflect spell unless I want to fight the wizard enemies. And even then, it's not always worth it because it uses so much magic. However, you have to have the Reflect spell. If you don't have the Reflect spell, you cannot beat this dungeon, and that is a fact. Like, there's no working around it, you have to get the Reflect spell to beat the game. Thankfully, it's not too hard to get, and it's not too mysterious to find. Although, I guess the child is a little hidden in a corner of the maze, but there's not too much of a place to explore for the child. I suppose it's just one of those things I've always known, that's why it's never got on my nerves, but I guess if it was really giving you trouble, maybe someone tells you about it, I don't know. I feel like something's said in the game about it, but if it's not, then I'll give you that point that maybe it's not totally clear. But yeah, as we work through the palace here, and I use the jump spell, unfortunately I didn't get lucky with this statue, because it becomes an iron knuckle, and I was really low on resources, and I just wasn't thinking straight to just ignore the statue because I wanted the magic. So we got a game over. See you in a few. And we're back again. Now, thankfully, it won't take me much longer because most of the dungeon is already finished. It's still annoying though that I had to go all the way back. And yeah, this is the point that I'll talk about for our trek because we're near the boss now and there's not much else to the dungeon, just a few more rooms. The death system. I've said before, it gets on my nerves. I think it's a negative thing against this game, and it's the reason most people complain about the difficulty, because they hate having to go back. I've said that you can strategize with it, so there is positives in that way. And there is, and I think, in fact, sometimes it can help. But I'm also not going to act like it's a best solution. Personally, I would just have either infinite lives or just infinite continues, and you just start at the start of a palace like you do in any other Zelda game. And in fact, to give something away, the last palace does let you respawn again at the start of the palace if you choose continue, which I don't understand why that wasn't in all of the others. So why doesn't that bother me as much as stuff that bothers me in, say, Breath of the Wild? Well, yeah, I agree that it's annoying having to go back from the beginning of the dungeon over and over. But, I don't know, it doesn't take you that long to travel around Hyrule for me. I think you get experience, so the journey's never wasted, because it gets you close to a level up when you start again. And you can choose how long you take to go back. And I don't know, I just don't think it's as, negative as people bring it out. It's not good, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world either. Anyway, all that aside, we have our boss fight. Now, as you can see, without the reflect spell, you can't hurt this boss at all, and he'll just destroy you. But what you want is reflect and shield, just for a bit of life insurance. And you stand in a corner. So this is Karok, and this is the worst boss in this game. I'd say the worst boss in Zelda history, but I'm sorry, nothing will ever beat King Dodonga from Ocarina of Time for me as the worst Zelda boss ever. That boss is pitiful. But look at that. I didn't even have time to talk about its attack pattern, I didn't have time to really go over deep strategy, because there's no strategy. You sit in a corner, you cast Reflect, and you just wait for his beams to hit your shield and bounce back at him. He hurts himself, kills himself, and that's it. It's such a waste of a boss. It's a shame. A game with magic. How amazing would it be to use magic against a magic user? But that's not the case. I'm not going to end on a sour note, because we finished the 4th palace. Yay! And what's great is we can go straight on to the 5th one. So, that's what we'll be doing next part. Thanks for watching.